All right, this is sure to get a lot of attention. The final slide on a Sophie Cunningham Instagram dump after the pass that she threw to Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark hits the shot. Fever win the game. Obviously, sort of poking fun at the idea that may not have been the first read on the play. And Caitlin Clark saying, "Love you, Soph," on the bottom for her honesty, I guess. To me, what doesn't matter is what the first option on the play was necessarily or not. That happens all the time in late game plays. That's not my issue. And you look at the I guess there's some mixed messaging, you could say.
The post went live, and the league stopped breathing. Sophie Cunningham didn't just break the rules, she shattered the entire coaching narrative with one single Instagram slide. Caitlin Clark's reaction wasn't just surprise, it was total, unfiltered shock at the level of honesty being displayed in public. While the coaching staff was busy telling the world everything went exactly to plan, Sophie was ready to burn that script to the ground. This wasn't just a game-winning pass, it was a defiant statement that the Indiana Fever locker room isn't what it seems on the surface. The fallout from this one post is shaking the foundations of the team's leadership right now.
I guess there's some mixed messaging, you could say, because Stephanie White did say this after the game about the play and the way it was drawn up.
You drew up, or how much confidence do you have in Caitlin for that shot?
Well, Austin drew up the play. I mean, Austin does a lot of our end-of-game stuff, and it was what he drew up. We executed it perfectly. I think you see we've been in a lot of those end-of-game situations, and we've done a really good job of executing in those moments. And we got the shot, and C stepped up and made a hell of a shot.
So it is what we drew up. I mean, first of all, I feel like, the coach is within her rights to say that in that moment, because whether or not
Sophie's Instagram dump seemed normal at first, just a celebration of a hard-fought Fever win. But that final slide was a tactical nuke aimed right at the playbook. She basically admitted that the pass she threw to Caitlin Clark was never supposed to happen the way it did. She poked fun at the idea that Caitlin wasn't even the first red on the play. For a team trying to project unity and tactical precision, this was an unbelievable move. It's the kind of honesty that coaches usually hate, but fans absolutely crave. It's rare to see a player go rogue on social media and admit they ignored the primary options to make their own magic happen.
Captured the quote, and I am sure that is reliable, what Sophie said on the radio broadcast. I mean, what Lexi said on the radio broadcast afterwards. We were trying to draw a foul there. I think Caitlin's a great basketball player. She made a read. Sophie was able to deliver a perfect pass to her. She knocked it down when it mattered. I can't say that's exactly what we drew up, but it worked. So we'll take it any day of the week. To me, that's a little bit semantics, right? Like, the play was likely not a cross-court skip pass to Caitlin Clark across the entire defense where it could be picked and taken the other way. But it's one of the actions within the play. Let's actually look at the play, and you can see, we don't.
Caitlin Clark's response was the smoking gun that proved there was a major disconnect between the players and the sideline. She commented, "Love you," on the post, specifically thanking Sophie for her honesty. Think about that for a second. Caitlin is basically admitting that the official story being sold to the media was a total fabrication. She was in shock that Sophie actually had the guts to tell the truth about how that play went down. It suggests that Caitlin might be feeling some frustration with how things are being handled behind the scenes. This wasn't just a friendly interaction, it was a public validation of a rogue moment that saved the game of the actions within the play.
Let's actually look at the play, and you can see, we don't need to rely on various accounts of what happened. You can see the actions on the play. That is pretty self-explanatory, right? So you have a screen from Aaliyah Boston starting things off there. You see Caitlin is going to come around, okay? So Lexi is moving baseline. Lexi's going to relocate to the corner. She is one of the options in the corner if nothing else works, and she's there for a spring out. If somehow they totally bite and go the other way, Sophie can just pass it to Lexi in the corner. But whoever catches the ball first also has the option to spray it to Lexi in the corner. That's further down.
The contrast between the players' honesty and the coach's comments is where things get really messy. After the game, Stephanie White was adamant that everything went according to plan. She praised the execution and credited the coaching staff for drawing up the perfect look. She told the press that they had been in these situations before and knew exactly how to handle them. It was the standard corporate response you expect from a high-level coach. But when the players start laughing about how they went off script, it makes the coach look like she's out of the loop, or worse, trying to take credit for a lucky break that the players created themselves.
So open, you're not really sure how that happens. It's still a very risky pass, but that is Sophie's choice to make that play. She is the one making that read, making that decision in that moment. And Cody McMahon, if she gets her hand on it, it's going the other way. But even when you see it freeze frame there, let's go back for a second. And you've got Kelsey, obviously there's an option here for Kelsey Mitchell to catch this ball, go downhill into the paint, and either get a shot off or try to draw a foul. I mean, clearly that's an option on the play. Then clearly Aaliyah Boston is an option on the play as well for Caitlin to catch and dump.
Kelsey Mitchell also stepped up to defend the official narrative, but her words felt a bit too polished. She told reporters that the play was just as it was written up, and that she knew the shot was money as soon as it left Caitlin's hands. It's the kind of teammate loyalty you love to see, but it completely contradicts what Sophie and Caitlin were hinting at online. You have to wonder if there was a meeting after the game where the players were told to stay on message. If so, Sophie clearly didn't get the memo, or she simply decided that the fans deserve to know the truth about the chaos of that final possession.
That's not the way it works. My problem is with the offense overall right now. And that's where I think people could be taken to task or looked at or scrutinized a little bit more. Look at the offensive rating here for the Fever. Number 9 in the league. That is simply, this is Basketball Reference. That's not good enough. That's not cutting it. They shouldn't be 7 points per 100 possessions worse than the Dallas Wings or, 6 worse than the Minnesota Lynx. That's not cutting it. And I feel as if sometimes they're a little galaxy-brained, in the sense of they've got such...
Lexi Hull during a radio interview that most people completely missed. She admitted that the primary goal of that final play was actually to draw a foul, not necessarily to find Caitlin for a deep look. Lexi was refreshingly honest, saying she couldn't claim that the play worked exactly how it was drawn up. She called it a great read by Caitlin and a perfect delivery by Sophie. This confirms the suspicion that the miracle win was more about player instinct than coaching brilliance. It's a subtle but powerful jab at the idea that the sideline has total control over what happens in those high-pressure moments.
Brained, in the sense of they've got such simple things that they can go to that they're not going to. Base pick and roll, Clark, Boston. Simple screen actions for Clark. Letting Clark run the show and make things happen herself. Those are things that you should be comfortable with at all times. And sometimes it looks like they're thinking out there. Sometimes it looks like things are a little bit too difficult for them out there. Now, the foul trouble slows things down too, because they were up by 17 points in the game. Caitlin was off to a great start. But
when you actually go back and watch the tape, the truth becomes even more obvious. The play starts with Aaliyah Boston setting a screen to free up both Caitlin and Kelsey. If you look closely at the body language, Kelsey Mitchell appears to be the primary target. She's the one moving downhill toward the paint, looking to either score or get to the free throw line. Caitlin is almost an afterthought in the initial action, popping up toward the perimeter while the defense is focused on the middle. It was a risky cross-court skip pass that most coaches would scream at you for attempting in a tie game, with the clock winding down.
Complicated or within the system all the time. And when you've got Aaliyah Boston and you've got Caitlin Clark and you've got Kelsey Mitchell and you've got the shooting the Indiana Fever have, whatever system you're running, you got no business not being at the top of the league in offense or right there. Now, they were early in the season. These things can change with easier schedule and all that. But to me, that's the thing to criticize, not how the play was drawn up or how people celebrated. Remember, when Clark hit that shot, there was still 1.2 seconds left. Game was not over. So there's no champagne popping and pouring in that moment. You got to get a stop on the other end.
Sophie Cunningham had to make a split-second decision that could have ended in disaster. If that pass is just 6 in to the left, Cody McMahon picks it off and takes it the other way for a game-winning layup. It was a high-risk, high-reward call that Sophie made entirely on her own. She saw a window that the play call didn't account for, and she took it. That's why her Instagram post was so impactful. She was acknowledging that she went rogue. She was admitting that she ignored the safer options to give the ball to the best shooter in the world, even if that wasn't what the clipboard said to do. The fact that this pass even got through is a testament to Sophie's vision and Caitlin's ability to find space where none exists. But it also highlights a glaring issue with the Fever's offensive strategy. Why isn't the best player in the league the primary option on every single LaTeX gameplay? It shouldn't require a rogue pass and a broken play for Caitlin Clark to get the ball in her hands when the game is on the line. The shock expressed by the players suggests that they are feeling the weight of a system that sometimes feels like it's overcomplicating the simplest game in the world. There's a growing sense that the Indiana Fever are being held back by a coaching staff that is trying to be too galaxy-brained. When you have a generational talent like Caitlin Clark, a dominant post presence like Elia Boston, and a lightning-fast scorer like Kelsey Mitchell, your offense should be at the top of the league. Instead, they are currently sitting at 9th in offensive rating. That is a staggering statistic that points to a massive failure in scheme and execution. They are playing a style of basketball that feels labored and difficult, rather than letting their natural talent take over. The analytics don't lie, and they are painting a grim picture of the Fever's current situation. Being 7 points worse per 100 possessions than the Dallas Wings is a wake-up call that nobody seems to be answering. With the amount of shooting and playmaking on this roster, there is no excuse for being in the bottom half of the league offensively. It feels like they are forcing a system that doesn't fit the personnel. Sometimes the best coaching is knowing when to get out of the way, but right now it looks like the players are the ones having to fight the system to find success. You can see the frustration in the body language of the players during almost every game. They were up by 17 points in this matchup before things started to crumble. That kind of collapse doesn't just happen because of bad luck. It happens when the offense becomes stagnant and predictable. When the pressure mounts, the players look like they are overthinking every move instead of playing with the joy and freedom that made them stars. Sophie's decision to go rogue at the end of the game might have been a subconscious rebellion against a system that was failing them in real time. Sophie Cunningham is quickly becoming the most fascinating character in this locker room because she refuses to stay in her lane. Remember, she's the same one who leaked the news about the private team meeting when everyone else was trying to keep it under wraps. Even Kelsey Mitchell was caught off guard, wondering how Sophie's mouth moved faster than the PR team could handle. Now she's doing it again by exposing the reality of their late-game execution. She's not just a shooter, she's a truth-teller who doesn't care if she makes the coaching staff look a little disorganized. This kind of transparency is exactly what Caitlin Clark seems to find refreshing. In a world of carefully managed PR statements and coach speak, Sophie is a breath of fresh air. Caitlin's shock wasn't just about the play itself, but about the fact that someone finally had the nerve to say what everyone was thinking. It creates a fascinating dynamic where the players are building a bond based on their shared reality, even if that reality contradicts the story being told by the front office. It's a grassroots leadership movement led by the players who are tired of the complicated formulas. The criticism of the coaching staff needs to be looked at more closely. Why are simple things like the Clark-Boston pick and roll being abandoned for more complex actions that don't produce results? It feels like the team is trying to prove how smart they are instead of proving how good they are. When you have the pieces they have, the game should be easy. You set a screen, you make a read, and you let your stars do the work. Instead, we see players looking at the sideline for directions while the shot clock winds down to 0. It's a recipe for the exact kind of struggle we're seeing now. The schedule hasn't been doing them any favors, but that's no excuse for the lack of offensive identity. Early in the season, there was a spark that seems to have dimmed as the system took over. The fact that a game-winning shot led to a controversy about how it was drawn up says everything you need to know about the current state of the team. Most teams would be celebrating the win without a second thought, but the Fever are stuck debating the semantics of a play that barely worked. It's a sign of a deeper rift that could become a major problem if it's not addressed soon. Sophie's post also highlights the role of the unsung heroes on this team. While Caitlin gets the headlines, players like Sophie are the ones making the gut-wrenching decisions that actually decide games. Her ability to see the floor and ignore the noise is what saved the Fever from another embarrassing collapse. She didn't just throw a pass, she threw a lifeline to a team that was drowning in its own complicated playbook. If she doesn't make that rogue call, we are likely talking about a very different outcome and a lot more heat on the head coach right now. There is also the issue of the atmosphere on the court. Basketball is supposed to be fun, especially when you have a roster full of high-energy players, but the joy seems to be missing from the Indiana Fever lately. They look like they are working a 9-to-5 job rather than playing a game they love. Sophie Cunningham is one of the few players who still brings that infectious energy, and her social media presence reflects that. She's trying to bring back the fun, even if it means poking a little fun at the coaching staff's expense along the way. Caitlin Clark is in a difficult position here. She's the face of the league and the centerpiece of the franchise, so she has to be careful about what she says, but her two-word comment on Sophie's post spoke volumes. It was a subtle way of saying thank you for being real. It shows that she is paying attention to the narrative, and she isn't afraid to align herself with the truth, even if it makes things a little awkward in the film room the next day. The fans are picking up on this, and the pressure on the coaching staff to simplify things is only going to grow. We have to ask if the Indiana Fever are reaching a breaking point. When players start publicly contradicting the coach's account of a game-winning play, it's usually a sign of a locker room that is losing faith in the leadership. They are winning games in spite of the system, not because of it. That's a dangerous place to be, especially for a young team that is still trying to find its footing in a competitive league. Sophie's call to Caitlin's side wasn't just a basketball play, it was a move that forced everyone to look at the reality of their situation. The league is watching this drama unfold with intense interest. Every move Caitlin makes is scrutinized. But this interaction with Sophie has revealed a side of the team that we rarely see. It's a side that is gritty, honest, and perhaps a little bit rebellious. It shows that the players are willing to take matters into their own hands when the plan isn't working. That kind of initiative is great for winning games, but it can be a nightmare for a coach who wants total control. The tension in Indiana is real, and it's being played out in front of millions. The takeaway from all of this is that the Indiana Fever need to find a way to bridge the gap between the clipboard and the court. If the players feel like they have to go rogue to get the ball to their best options, then the play calling is fundamentally broken. Sophie Cunningham might have been the one to throw the pass, but she also threw down a gauntlet. She's challenging the status quo and demanding a more honest approach to the game. Caitlin Clark is clearly on her side, and the rest of the league is just waiting to see how the coaches respond. At the end of the day, the Indiana Fever are sitting on a gold mine of talent that is being held back by a system that feels too rigid for its own good. Whether Sophie Cunningham's rogue pass was a mistake or a stroke of genius doesn't change the fact that this team needs more of that instinctual play. Caitlin Clark shouldn't have to wait for a broken play to find her rhythm. And the coaching staff needs to realize that sometimes the best plan is simply to let your stars be stars. If they can find a way to bottle that Sophie to Caitlin magic without the drama, they might actually become the powerhouse everyone expected.